there's some resiliency that comes with just having done a lot of hard things and just paying attention. So if you have a habit of paying attention, that's good. One of my favorite quotes of my own I got from the day 30 on the way to the North Pole, which is when I went through the ice. And then I was really thinking after I did that. And I was like, if you're doing something hard and you're not learning from that experience, you're not paying attention. And if you're not doing anything with that insight, you're wasting your time. And I don't want to waste my time.
Welcome to another edition of Chasing the Timeless. This week I have an amazing guest, Tyler Fish, and you'll learn all about him in this, but he is one of the most incredible, kind, thoughtful, and amazing studs in the world. So it's just all around. He's one of the most complex yet interesting yet beautiful people I know. So welcome, Tyler.
Wow, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, that's complex yet beautiful is not something I hear every day, but I'm going to go with it. I like it.
All right. So to give a little heads up on how I met Tyler, I used to work at Outward Bound leading wilderness courses, and a previous interview I had with Poppy Potter was another one of my mentors there. And Tyler introduced me to the concept of who knows what's good or bad. And that's the thing that sticks out the most when I think about you. Why don't you tell me what that means to you?
Yeah, well, what that means to me is, we have our initial reactions to things, which is fine. We're going to have them, and then, but to me, what it means is if we can catch ourselves right after that and go, wait a minute, who knows if this is good or bad? It just frees us up. It just opens it opens me up to a variety of things. Opens my curiosity. It also maybe opens me up to acceptance, right? Like, hey, I can just accept this thing that's happening because it may actually lead to something better in the long run. And so yeah, I think that's really it's a way to I don't know, to use my brain to go, hang on, my emotions don't have to drive, right? They can be here and be present, but we can also keep the long game in mind. Like in the end, this thing may be good, it may be bad. I don't even know. I don't get to know right now. It's just a thing that's happening. And what can I do with it? Maybe something, maybe not. And that's the next step.
I think one thing that people think of is when I happen to mention it to somebody, they're usually in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And so that's really not the best time to introduce that concept to somebody sometimes.
Yeah.
But even when they're not, they'll think, well, what possibly could come good from it? And I like that you said sometimes we don't get to know.
Mm-hmm.
And my oldest son had won a scholarship award to go to Bhutan to study religion and environment there. He'd planned it for a long time, had guides, had his whole itinerary set up. We were down in Chicago. I dropped him off at the airport. And before I drove out of the airport, I got a call saying they won't let me on the plane because I don't have a visa to India. And he was only going to be in the airport for a few hours, but because we bought the ticket in two different legs, and technically he could go into India, the airline had a policy of not letting him go.
Mm.
And the whole experience, just like that, was gone.
Yeah.
And the two things that I thought was Bhutan was going through a big flooding at the time. And so a myriad of things could have happened if he went there. A myriad of benefits could have happened with him not being there with the guide. I mean, you just don't know. And then also, instead of that, I said, well, let's go to a guitar store and play, $100,000 worth of equipment and just make a lot of loud noise and get this out
Yeah.
of our system.
Yeah.
And he was just learning guitar. And then later that day, uh, his friend's dad called him up and said, "Hey, I've got a guitar for you if you want it." Um, and then he joined a band later on. You never know where life's going to take you.
You don't. And that's, we are so, I mean, as human beings, we're wired for control, right? We want to have control. And obviously there's some good to that, and there's helpful aspects to that, and there's some not so helpful aspects to that. And you hear a lot. I mean, I do it, everybody does it, organizations do it. As like, we're trying to make the best decision, you know and which is great. We should try to make relatively good decisions. But I think the other question to ask ourselves is, how do we make whatever decision that we do decide, how do we make that decision best? Right? Mm-hmm. So it may be better just to decide and then figure out, how do we optimize this one?
Yeah.
So, and I'm confronted with that all the time. I'm always slowed down by, I want to make the best decision. And I would be better served personally by being just make a decision and then figure out how to make this situation best.
Yeah. Any decision is a decision.
Yeah. I mean, how can there be any like right decision? There's only decisions that have immediate consequences that we see clearly. And we're like, ooh, that means that was the right decision. But again, who knows what is good and what is bad? Whatever was good right then may lead to something bad down the road, which is why it's nice to be able to go, who knows what is good and what is bad? It doesn't matter. I'm going to make the best of it, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Which speaks to a little bit to resilience, which I think is I think it's a wonderful trait. I love it in myself. It's something I value. I value it in other people. It's a whole bunch of skills that we can learn, but I think that resilience ultimately is just one of those things that it just makes us happier, in the long term. And so I think a lot about that. And one of the things that you mentioned there was, who knows what is good and what is bad. That mantra, I'm a fan of mantras. Those help us be resilient and help us get from decision to decision, from point to point, especially when we're stuck.
Mm-hmm. So for the people that don't know Tyler, you went to the North Pole. You've been there more than once, right?
I have only been to the North Pole once. I've been to the Arctic Ocean a few times.
Got it.
The actual North Pole, that was one trip of a lifetime. Yep.
Yeah. And where I'm from in Wisconsin, we have the Kettle Moraine. It's a lot of great cross-country skiing here, a lot of up and down, kind of really steep up and down, but the North Pole is pretty easy, just nice and flat, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what probably people think of if they think of anything accurate, Yeah, I mean, we were the first unsupported American expedition to the North Pole. This is in 2009, so it's a while ago now. And yeah, the Arctic Ocean, people ask all sorts of questions like, what were the trees like? I was like, well, that was easy. There weren't any,
Yeah.
Or is it mountainous, or is it all sorts of, people have all sorts of, misconceptions about that, but it's the Arctic Ocean. I mean, there are no trees. There are no mountains except on the tip of Canada where we started. And it's a mostly frozen body of water, depending on the season, or where you are in the year, whether it's growing the ice or shrinking the ice based on temperatures and winds and currents. Yeah, but the ice tends to really pile up on the Canadian side. So you've got like Volkswagen sized chunks of ice, that are just all piled up. And yeah, you crawl, you walk, you ski.
Right. And almost 2 months
Yeah.
living just off of what you guys could carry, which is
55 days. Yeah. 300 pounds of stuff for each of us.
Wow. And That seems really light because if I'm going out for just a week, I'll take twice that.
Well, it is funny. I mean, once you're going for an overnight, it's like, yeah, all of a sudden, you might as well leave for a month. It's the
Right.
same stuff. Add food, obviously, but
Right. We're having light of this, but there's something about your ability to do that. First, even to want or think about
Mm.
doing that. Um, it's it's so different from the way almost everybody else lives to say, hey, here is this challenge that's so unbelievably difficult. Nobody's done it before from America.
Yeah.
Very few people have even thought about the fact that they could do it.
Yeah.
What started this plan with you?
Ooh. I mean, it depends how far back you want to go. Uh, what there never was, I can say, there was never a moment like in childhood or something where I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to go to the North Pole. That didn't exist. Um, so there was no early starting point, but there was a much later starting point, I would say, after I started working for Outward Bound and leading winter expeditions. What I fell in love with was expedition life and working really hard and doing that with other people. I fell in love with that. And I have a natural inclination to, liking teams and wanting to really figure out how do we make our team a better team? What do we need to do? How do we need to communicate? What kind of relationships do we need to have? What kind of goals do we need to set? What are the systems that have to be in place? There's all sorts of things. And and so that was kind of the start in a way. It's like that set it in motion, you know. And then years later, uh, you know, I went on many winter expeditions with Outward Bound, and not just with students, but also on staff expeditions, which I would say probably carried me further along, this path. And then my expedition partner, who worked at Outward Bound at the time, he did a historical reenactment of the Amundsen Scott race to the South Pole, and they did this on Greenland. So he was on the Norwegian team representing Amundsen. He didn't represent Amundsen, but
Mm-hmm.
he was on the team anyway. Um, and one of the Norwegians who was on the team looked at him, and this guy had been talking about the North Pole and everything, and he because he'd done it and many other expeditions, and he looked at John and went, John, no American has done this expedition. And I'm sure John, all of a sudden, that moment, something clicked, right? I can imagine for John where he was like, huh, and so then, I don't know, a couple months later, I don't know, for eating somewhere or whatever. I don't really recall that first moment, but at some point he told me that, right? He said, Fish, no American has done this expedition. And I'm sure I kind of went, huh. Uh, and then later, I do remember this. We were at the house I was renting, and we were drinking a little tequila that I'd been given from somebody. And I remember he kind of looked at me and he's like, well, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, not knowing what yeah means. What does that mean? How much planning, all the years of getting ready and fundraising and more fundraising and et cetera. Uh, so that was, if there was another moment, like that was the moment when we both kind of said, yeah, let's do it. Um, and then there's numerous recommitting moments, as you're going. And eventually you're at the start line. You're like, here we are on the edge of North America, right? Looking out, and then there's the ocean. Um, but yeah, it was, in a lot of ways there are probably many, many things that led to that moment. I tend to think that at that moment in 2009 and on the 2nd of March, like many things in my life kind of led to that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all
And
sorts. from being a competitive, a skier to loving wilderness expeditions, to just growing up in Minnesota and being a fan of winter. I mean, there's all sorts of things that lead to that moment.
It was interesting hearing you talk about you kind of start this plan and it's, years out. When was
Yeah,
it? How? Yeah.
2006 was probably when we
Yeah.
started,
Yeah.
and we didn't go till 2009.
And I think that's an interesting concept for people to take in is if people are looking for something different in their life,
Yeah.
there's the first decision is to decide to make a change.
Yeah.
That's the first decision. And then you can set goals. And your goals don't have to be like for you as long time out, and just eventually you get there as long as you just hold that goal with you.
You probably make you make the far off goal, but the goals between here and there probably change a lot, right? Like you first think, oh, we'll just do this. Oh, this is we can't even, yeah, there's that far off goal, getting to the North Pole or getting to the starting line, whatever. But like from in between here and there, there's, oh, well, we'll just do this. Great. That's our next goal. But, oh, we need to set another goal. Oh, this goal was wrong. I mean, there's all sorts of redos because you just can't know what all the things are that you have to do.
Right.
I mean, like anything, then yeah. I mean, that's very analogous to life. You're like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And so this is my next step. And we're so wired to be like, oh, I'll just do this next thing. But it almost never works out that way.
It's almost like a little bit of luck to have that be sustained throughout, those years and the same people. Like you could have easily along the way decided, you know what, this other opportunity is in front of us right now, and this is where I want my life to go, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do think luck plays a role, but I also think I'm a big believer in creating our own luck. And I think in my life, I've probably deliberately and inadvertently been pretty good at creating my own luck. I'm pretty optimistic in general. I like people, so I like relating to people, learning from other people. I've not been a particularly good goal setter as far as like, there were even friends of mine after high school were like, what's your 5-year plan? And I'm like, I have no idea, and in fact, I've never had a 5-year plan, but consider myself successful as a human being. So that must be okay, and yet I feel like I've always been setting myself up well for whatever comes next, even if I don't know, and most often don't know what that thing is. So that I've always been able to, when the opportunity has come, let me jump on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause when you're like, this is the thing.
Yeah. I want to get into more of that a little bit later. So remind myself, like setting yourself up for when that moment comes to be able to react. But going back to the North Pole thing, one, you talked about the accomplishing something with other people, which I wasn't really expecting that as an answer. I was thinking more of like a long distance ultra marathon runner who's just in themselves. And there's a part of agile software decision making where you have a goal that you set, but you're constantly looking at where you are, and you're planning as you move along and making these logistical decisions. And so there's that quality of it, being a good planner, good logistics, good communicator, good working with people. Excuse me. And then there's how do you prepare yourself mentally for the inevitable consequences that are right in front of you, that there's more of a grit that you bring with you, that because otherwise every software developer would be able to plan a trip to the North Pole.
Right.
But how do you face the unexpected in situations where it seems unsurmountable?
So I have done solo trips and solo events, like solo expeditions. I've done them, and I've done, I've done a couple ultra marathons, um, and even still really enjoy like going out for a day of skiing by myself. But that's a very different thing from doing things with other people. And if I had to choose, almost every time I would choose to do something hard with somebody else. Now, you may actually increase your chance of failure by doing it with somebody else because you've got another person and maybe they'll break physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, right? However, I have not found that to be the case. I have found it to be that I very much enjoy being with other people. I like sharing the miseries and the joys with them. Um, and often the relationships we have in those moments are what get us through those moments and are also strengthened by those moments. Right. So that I'm a firm believer in that challenge primes us for better relationships. So I think that's also true. I know that we bring different strengths to the table, no matter who a pair or a team is. Somebody on this team is bringing something I don't have. And I think of that I've reflected a ton on the North Pole and why we were successful, because we were. Hope that's not spoiling it for anybody, but we were successful. It was close. We were cutting it close, but John and I brought very different things to that team. We didn't fully recognize what we brought. We mostly focused on what was common. But when I think about the different things we brought, I consider him a bit of a worrier. Like, he's a worrier, a planner, always thinking about how to, what do we do if, kind of like the software developer in a way that you were talking about, where it's like, if I could just plan it all, that's John. And I'm so thankful, because we would not have made it without his strengths in that and so many other things, and that's not me. I bring an optimism, a flexibility, ability to work very hard, a lightness in terms of sense of humor. Like, I think that there are, and we wouldn't have made it without that, right? We needed that as well. Ability to fix things. Like, I really like repairing things when they break, because I'm like, all right, we're just going to do it, And so we needed both of our strengths. And I find that to be true in all areas of my life, including, my relationships and including my marriage. Like, I've been married once, and now I'm married again. And the second time, I'll just say one of the reasons it's awesome is because I can accept, like, this other person brings things that I can't. In fact, I need what this other person brings. I need what Carly brings, and so we actually do long, adventure races together, ultra marathons together most of the time. And we're stronger because we do it together.
Mm-hmm.
We're a good team that way. And so, and some of that is letting that just be. This is what she's good at. This is what I'm good at. As long as we're talking about it and acknowledging that, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah. In my life, my wife is the trip planner,
Yeah.
and I'm the, oh, but if you plan it, then you don't have all these, as many spontaneous surprises. And yeah, like at one point, I remember driving with her and she had her phone out with directions, and I said, "This is great, but just today, I've been here before. I don't remember exactly how to get there, but for me, part of the fun is
Mm,
trying to remember how to
sure.
get there." And I had to say, "I may be lost, but we're going to get there." And there's times for planning, but you know, give me my moment today of like not knowing what's happening around the corner.
Oh yeah.
Um, and but so with my time with Outward Bound, one of the things that I was impressed with was every single person there, through the orientations, through the hiring process, are really unique, amazing people.
Wow.
And even you can take two different people, a planner and somebody that's optimistic, but there's something else that I think both of those people have to use in big expeditions in order to help them work together. And one of the things that I remember being taught is if you have a problem with somebody, you know, like cut out all the melodramatic stuff and the grudges you hold and just talk to the person and say, you're doing this, and just letting you know it's bothering me. I'm not claiming that you're doing it wrong, but this is how I'm dealing with it. And
Yeah.
this is how I hope we can move through this. And I remember the first time uh, going on with another instructor I didn't know, and something he did rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I went out, pulled him aside. I said, "This this is affecting me this way." And the response normally with most people would be to get defensive
Hmm.
about it.
Sure.
And there wasn't any defensiveness there. It was like, oh, I know something more about you now. I know something more about me now. Let's talk about our intentions and what we can do to go forward to make us both have a great day going forward. And there's this understanding that this is how we're going, this is how you deal with other staff members, with other people in these expeditions. So with John, your partner out there, what are those skills that and how did, well, even going deeper, how did you start recognizing, learning about those skills?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that. Whoever you worked with, uh, was a unique individual. Meaning, I still think, even though we know that communicating and talking frankly and openly with each other, even though we know that to be a good thing, it is not an easy thing. And I even though I've worked with a lot of people at Outward Bound, and I would like to think that they are those people and that I am that person who can bring that. In any given moment, it can just be really hard. It can be hard to say. It can be hard to accept. People are naturally defensive. Uh, I think they have to have a real moment of like, oh wait, this is what's happening. This is I need to be ready to accept if somebody is coming to me and has something to say. And we're not always ready, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not. But so you asked about the skills. Uh, you know, I think that in any team there are those differences, but there also needs to be commonalities, certain commonalities. You have to have that. And what John and I had, which was a huge, huge benefit, was we had a cultural commonality. We'd worked at Outward Bound, so we had common values, a common way of doing things, like an essence about just how expeditions are run. We'd worked together a lot and really admired the same types of other polar expeditions and the way those women and men, went about it. And so we kind of had this this thing, right? That was, I put it out here. I don't know why it's out here. It's in here, that we had in here and between us. And that was a really, really a strong thing. It's kind of like we'd been training for it for years without knowing, right? Just in developing that commonality. So culturally, I'd say we had that. Skill wise, I worked a lot in the Intercept program, which was and still is a very effective program, sort of early intervention program for teens and families at Outward Bound. And it's for kids who are just struggling with their friends, struggling academically, struggling with relationships at home, struggling with their goals, that kind of stuff. And it's pretty intense to work with kids who, for a month, who don't want to be there, or at least at first who don't want to be there. There can be a lot of resistance and a lot of, I guess, behavior that comes along with that can be unpleasant. And so it makes working those courses very urgent. Like, you really have to pay attention to how are people interacting with each other, not just how are students interacting, but how are the staff interacting and how are we interacting with the students. So a lot of my skill in working with people came from that program, and just a heightened awareness and a heightened urgency around how we communicate, how we work together, how we set our goals, how we follow through, what we pay attention to, how we resolve conflict, how we give feedback. Like, there was just a lot of that came with very practical experience working at Outward Bound. So yes to the cultural part, and sort of that John and I absorbed that, but we also had practice, very tangible practice in this all those skills that commonly we call soft skills, or because they're very malleable. Like, you can use them in many different situations. And to say we had them is fine, but it doesn't always make it easy to use them. So I just want to emphasize that you can have them, but you still have to have the courage to bring things up. And John and I didn't always do that. We've I would say at times failed at bringing things up when we needed to. Didn't always listen to each other, didn't always let each other say what needed to be said, and we got better at that. But some of it we had to do on the ocean. We did talk. We had disagreed on the ocean, and some of it was baggage from way back when we were planning, a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, that we just hadn't talked about. So I think that's pretty human. And you are right. I love what you said, Andrew. It's like the moment we bring it up, it changes the relationship. It changes who we are together, because we increase that understanding. We fill the pool of knowledge between us, and that's a wonderful metaphor I like, which is like, when thinking of conflict, how can I think of it as I'm filling this pool of meaning between us, and the more water that's in that pool, the healthier it is, the better it is. Yeah, it's great. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you're bringing more truth. There's
Yeah.
It's reality. And what are things people can kind of do to create that boy, this is hard to talk about, the desire to see it through, the courage to speak out. And that's, you could say, well, that's something you have or you don't have, but I also feel it's something that can be developed as well.
Yeah.
And part of developed in, and I'm assuming, I'm going to let you answer that first.
Yeah. I mean, I think courage is an area of our humanness that we definitely grow. Yes, some of us may have inherently a little more courage, just It's what we've got. It's however we got it. And it can also be environment specific, meaning I have a lot of courage in this situation, but not a lot of courage in this situation. So it's really okay for that to be true. And I think courage is portable, meaning the more courage I have in one situation, it's going to bleed over into other situations. Right. And that's the whole point of doing hard things. Like, we do hard things to learn from them so that when we do the next hard thing, which will be slightly different, we have a little more courage and maybe it's a little easier. Like, that's the whole point of learning, right? Is to, yes, in the specific situation, but also can we generalize it and apply it in a new situation? That is the best kind of learning. Because otherwise, if we keep it all situational, wow, inefficient and just difficult, right? Especially when it comes to people. We're working with other people. Like, imagine for a moment if we only learned that this is the way we're going to operate with this one person. Oh, we have courage with this one person, but then I have to develop a whole new courage with another person. Ooh, that's really hard.
What keeps it constant? How do you internalize something? Like, how does it become part of you and not just like, is there something in how you see yourself that changes as you push yourself into more situations?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a huge fan of growth mindset and just believing that uh, that we can learn, which isn't to say I don't have my doubts and moments of like, ugh, why am I this way? So I certainly have that, but I really do believe that we are meant to cope with change. Human beings are wired to cope with change. We just may not be that practiced at it, especially in our today's society where a lot of things for a long time have been pretty safe and stable. But actually, when you think about human history over time, it's like things have been changing all the time, and we're wired for that, but not always practiced at it. But to get to your question, so yes, I believe in that. And I think we have to be successful, right? Like, we have to be successful at doing a hard thing or working with a certain person or working with a lot of different people. And so if we recognize success, we're more likely to keep doing something.
Mm.
And if we do it enough, it becomes a part of who we are. Things move from this is what I do to this is who I am. And for some, maybe it's like they do it once and they're like, this is who I am. But I think for more people, it's like I have to do it multiple times. Think about a kid who does a sport. Like, I think of my son, and he started running cross country, years ago, and track. And now I think he considers himself a runner. He is a runner. It is part of his identity. So it had to move from this is what I do into this is who I am. And these are the people I hang out with. And these are the events that I go to. And this is where my success is. And that's where I see my future success potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it sounds cliche to say practice makes better, but it does.
Yeah. And the success doesn't have to be success of I reached the goal I set out to get. It could be success in I survived this, and that wasn't my goal, but I've met a failure, and I'm okay with it. And I was scared of failure, and now I'm no longer scared of failure as well.
Yeah. I mean, we set goals to achieve them for sure. Like, we wanted to go to the North Pole to get to the North Pole. However, the greatest of successes on that expedition didn't come from getting there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. It is an absolutely uninteresting place. The only reason that place has any meaning for me is because of everything that came prior. And all of that I took into who I am now. All of that, all that effort, all of that needing to, I mean, all the things we had to do. And that's a very a blunt summary,
Yeah.
but like there's so much that John and I had to do in terms of our skills, to maintain ourselves and keep ourselves healthy, our relationship maintenance, all the planning we had to do, all the adaptations we had to make on our journey. I mean, all the things we had to do. Those are the things that were the real successes. And we're able to do that because we set some, outcome goal. But I'm a big fan. I've become a big fan, ever since that. I'm a big fan of process goals, and I'm a ski coach in um my life, and I've been a coach for about 20 years. I coach high school cross country skiing, and I don't care. Since I don't care, I do care. I want people to set an outcome goal. I want them to think about what they could achieve. But ultimately, that matters very little to me. What matters to me most is, what are these process goals? What are the things you want to do? Maybe you need to do, want to do. How are we going to ladder these goals to your outcome? But it's all the steps of the ladder that really matter. And it's the steps of the ladder, that they can take elsewhere. Um, so whether they do well at the state meet, I mean, that's just bonus,
Yeah.
right? That ultimately, so many things out of their control. There's so many things out of their control. But when it comes to the outcome, but when it comes to having a process, I mean, that you pack up and take with you. Um, that's what I want for myself. It's also what I want for my skiers. It's what I want for other people when I'm working with them. It's like, what are you doing? What skill are you growing? What perspective are you gathering? What relationships are you um, building? Um, you know, so that you can be a more resilient and successful human being wherever you go.
Mm-hmm. What kind of activities and process goals, big goals build that? Like, is there some general description? I mean, because not everybody's gonna go skiing. Not everybody has snow. Not
Yeah, yeah.
everybody necessarily wants to go in the wilderness. But what can people do in their lives to create some kind of momentum where they're going to be learning, they're going to be
Yeah.
growing? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters. Well, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. Obviously, it matters, but um, you hear about stretch goals, um, and that they haven't gone away, you know. So I think
Stretch goal meaning what?
well, it's something that it's a goal you're not quite sure you can achieve.
Oh, got it. Got it.
You're
Okay.
pretty sure you can. It's going to take a little bit of something to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that matters. Like, you want to set something that you're excited about and that you're pretty sure you can do, but you're not entirely sure. It's not guaranteed. I mean, why set a goal that you're guaranteed to achieve? It's very uninteresting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I'm a big fan of minimum viable progress, meaning it's good to set some steps in there that I can do that for sure, 100%. That's great, but that's not your stretch goal. That's not what you're aiming for. Um, but it has to be very personal. Stretch goal was, or not stretch goal, North Pole might have been my stretch goal for my life at that time. But nobody else is going to pick that. I mean, you can't even do that expedition now, because of the ice changes and climate change. So sorry, folks, that one's off the table. But it can be very personal. It needs to be very personal. It can be anything. It can be, I'm going to run a 5K. If you've never run anything, running a 5K is a stretch, right? And there's nothing. And then once you do it, it might never be a stretch again. Who knows? I don't know who you are. It could be. It also doesn't have to be a physical goal, right? It can be, it could be a relationship you're trying to grow with your dad, your son, a coworker who you just really want to have a better relationship with. It can be a skill you want to learn. You know, a lot is happening these days. You know, people have to upskill and learn new things in order to stay competitive, be happy, whatever. Yeah, what's a skill you want to learn? I don't know. There's so many things, but I do think it needs to be a combination of a stretch goal. I think there needs to be some passion involved, meaning motivation might get you started, you know, or but it also helps along the way. So it's got to be something that, you know, down the road you're going to still want to do. Like when I was going to the North Pole, I couldn't wake up on day 31 and go, I'm kind of done with this. You know, it doesn't work. I'm over it. You know, no. You gotta have stuff. So you've got to have a little bit of motivation. And you've got to have, it has to be, you have to want to do something that you'll get gritty with. You know, like the middle is often not inspiring. The middle is where you have to be like, what are my systems? How do I keep things going? So that I don't have to think about it as much, but I'm still working towards my goals. I'm a big fan of systems for success. Yeah, I just think that we also have to, in an ideal world, we love the goal, but almost more than that, we're really excited about all the steps it will take to get to the goal. Because that's what it's going to take. That's the hard part, right? And if you can add some other people into the process, whether they're going to do it with you or they're your supports, or they're your mentors, or they're whatever, that's going to increase your likelihood of success. So I think that a goal you should set is one where you can involve other people. I think that's a pretty important aspect to it. You know, we talk about at Outward Bound, sometimes we've talked about accountability buddies, you know, with kids, and but adults are the same. We need people to help us be accountable to our goals and our methods of achieving.
Yeah, when I started doing this podcast, I hired a life coach to set goals every period of time, and that really helped me get through those medium daily things that's kind of where I tend to give up. Like I love getting started.
Sure.
And then in the middle, it's like, okay, I have to I need some motivation to get me to that final goal, and having that accountability of saying, I created these 1 month goals, and here we are 1 week before I told my coach I was going to be done. And so now I need to do the whole month's worth in that last week, but I did it because I did not want to show up and pay the money and say, well, I didn't do anything this week. And so for me, that's really useful. I really commend people that can really stay that motivated without it.
You know, the question I would have, I guess, is like, are they motivated? Or do they just have systems that are so good that they're just on the track to success, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be both. I don't think it's an either or, but I think that people who appear motivated often are just really able to connect dots consistently. And I don't think there's any, I don't know. It's not like I think there's a special life hack to motivation. I think, and to success, you just got to do consistent work. You know, John and I were late almost every single morning out of the tent on the way to the North Pole. Meaning we woke up fine, but like we were never made our time goal to getting out of the tent, you know, all the way to getting to the North Pole. Because behind being late was also really great systems, or maybe after being late was really great systems where it didn't really matter. Okay, so we screwed up, or we were unmotivated, or we were tired, or whatever, anything, right? But we had really great systems that were the engine. And so the engine cannot be your motivation. The engine has to be everything else.
It's really interesting.
Mm.
Building your life to support your movement through it.
Yeah. There's this concept of grit or fit, which one, and I don't think it's either or. I think the better fit something is in your life, the grittier you will be with it and the grittier you will seem doing it. The more successful you'll see, people are like, oh, he's really great at working hard at this thing. Well, it's like, but also maybe it's just a great fit. Like I've worked at Outward Bound for 30 years now. And a lot of people might ask, well, or might say or assert that I don't know, had a lot of perseverance or something to stay at this, at it for so long. But I also think it was just a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's easy, we'll do it.
Yeah.
As long as there's a little passion involved too.
Yeah. What are you, what, if I can get a little more personal, what are the things in your life right now that you see yourself wanting to grow at, develop?
Yeah, fair question. Very timely. I'm actually about to leave Outward Bound after 30 years. And I don't know what's next. I've been with Outward Bound in a variety of ways, right? All sorts of different roles since I was in my early 20s.
People can get comfortable in a place and then be afraid of trying something different, especially with career changes.
Yeah.
And it's the unknown that keeps people stuck in one spot. But obviously you're comfortable with the unknown. And so what is it that you're somewhat comfortable with the unknown?
Yeah, I mean,
like, there's new things entering your life now. So
yeah.
what are the fears that you have right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think, very normal fears. I hope they're very normal. I have fears. So what I tell myself about leaving Outward Bound is I'm going to find the next best thing because there's a great thing for me out there. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to find it. But the other side of that is, what if I don't? What if I settle? What if it's mediocre? What if I don't make enough money so that I'm actually, unhappy? Because let's be honest, a certain amount of money you want to for happiness, to do the things you love to do. What if my relationships suffer? What if I can't maintain my coaching skiing like I've done for 20 years, what if I have to move? There's all these things, right? That's on the other side of, I'm going to find the next best thing. So that's hard. And one of the things that's exciting for me is I've learned a lot. I mean, I've learned a lifetime. I've probably learned more than a lifetime of perspective and skills at Outward Bound, and to apply them somewhere else is exciting to me. So that's exciting. I also, one thing I dearly miss, I miss facilitating other people more directly. I will do a lot of behind the scenes stuff right now in my current role, and I miss working with people one-on-one or facilitating groups, that kind of thing. So I would like to do more of that because I feel like that's where a lot of my heart is. I deeply care about the enlightenment that other people have. So I'm excited about that. But I've got a lot of things that are not practiced. Like, I am not used to switching jobs. I just haven't done it. I've generally moved through Outward Bound kind of as I could, but I haven't spent a lot of time in the job searching world. So that's very new to me. / uncomfortable. But what it really means is like, okay, I've got to learn some stuff. And here's what I know about me. I have not often known what I wanted in life, which may be come as a surprise to somebody who's reached the North Pole and been successful in a lot of other ways. But what I do know is when I have decided to chase something down, I have been successful 100% of the time. Whatever the outcome ended up being, I could say to myself, I did that. So yes, I'm uncomfortable, and I will decide what it is, and then I will chase it down, and it's going to work out.
There's two phrases that I think are really important for people to think about when they're said, is like what if and shoulds. If you're using the word should, really analyze that and find out, like, is that true? I mean, is it necessary, or is it just a belief? And the what ifs, diving into them. Well, what if? Like, answer. Look at it. Don't just leave it as a question hanging out there. Like, and I think almost all the time you realize, like, well, I'm okay. I'm still going to be okay. Yeah. I'm still going to have options and choices to make every day.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's good to be able to step back a little bit and go, wait a minute, Tyler, what are you doing right now? Right? What language are you using with yourself? What are your patterns? And the great thing about being 53 is that I have enough life experience with myself to know what my patterns are. And Outward Bound has taught me a lot about looking at those and recognizing those. And so I know what I tend to do. And I know when it's unhelpful, and you just catch yourself faster. It's not like it's not there, but you catch yourself and you go, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have systems to help you point out those patterns? I mean,
I have yes, I think I do. Meaning there's some resiliency that comes with just having done a lot of hard things and just paying attention. I just think sometimes you just have to pay attention. So if you have a habit of paying attention, that's good. And I do have that habit. One of my favorite quotes of my own I got from the day 30 on the way to the North Pole, which is when I went through the ice and thankfully didn't get too wet. But it was, and then I was really thinking after I did that, and I was like, if you're doing something hard and you're not learning from that experience, you're not paying attention. And if you're not doing anything with that insight, you're wasting your time. And I don't want to waste my time. Right. And so there's an awareness in me that I think is important. And part of being resilient is using all of our resources that we have. So like I journal, and not necessarily a long time and not heavily, but I do journal. That is surprising, the realizations it brings. I tend to talk to people. I glean wisdom from others. I let them listen to me, and sometimes they bounce stuff back or ask questions. And then I also exercise, and exercise is great for the body, of course, but it's fantastic for my mind. And I know that sometimes if I'm stuck, I have to move my body to move my mind. Right? Like the things will start to move as the blood flows, like literally. Yeah. And I'll even just say to myself, Tyler, what about blah, blah, blah? Or you're just doing that. Like, I'll just start to have this inner conversation, this dialogue, and at one point I go, oh, well, that's it then. So there's all sorts of things that I do to recognize when I'm not always on the best path.
It's been really, really awesome talking to you. This is the longest we've ever talked. I know so much more about you.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much that your life is going to be able to show a lot of people who are just trying to make shifts in their life, and they can look at you for inspiration for how to do that. So thanks a lot. If you enjoyed this episode and you know somebody that might be inspired by it, share it with them. To learn more about the show, go to chasingthetimeless.com.